All right, the third and final game for action on Tuesday night is Ball State Buffalo. Buffalo 4.5, 5-point favorites, 53.5 being the total in this game. These two teams, well, Buffalo's playing for bowl eligibility, and I will give Pete Lembo's team credit. A couple of tough losses against Western Michigan and Ohio. That was a brutal loss for them against Ohio. They got absolutely destroyed, 47-16 in that game against the Bobcats. It's been rough, but they bounced back against Akron in their last game with a 41-30 victory. And that game, don't be fooled by the final score. That game was 38-7 after the third quarter, and Buffalo kind of went to sleep with the big lead in the fourth quarter. But it's been an all over the map kind of season for CJ Ogbonna here, the quarterback for Buffalo. He's actually got good. He's taking care of the ball. Only 2 interceptions, 10 touchdowns, but only completing 56% of his passes. He's been decent at times being able to run it. We'll see how he fares here in this game. Buffalo now laying points. Not exactly something I'm excited about doing. That being said, I will point out they actually are 3-0, believe it or not. I was surprised to see this, that they are 3-0 against the spread as a favorite this year. They won and covered against Lafayette, first game of the year. They won and covered as a short home favorite against UMass. And then they won and covered as the road favorite last week against Akron. But now they're laying 5. I believe this is the biggest favorite they've been all year, because the other games they were only laying 3.5 or less. And Ball State's been a covering machine lately. 3 straight point spread covers here for this Ball State team. They had the surprisingly competitive effort against Vanderbilt a few weeks ago, and then they returned to MAC play. They upset Northern Illinois as 13.5-point dogs, 25-23. Last week against Miami O, I was impressed. Well, again, one of the better teams in the conference, Chuck Martin's Miami O team, a very experienced quarterback for them, and Brett Gabbert. And here's Ball State, solid, running the, it was a solid game from their quarterback, Caden Samanza, who had 280 passing yards in that game. Did have a couple interceptions, but shook him off, was able to rally the team. They had a good game through the air. They weren't able to run the football at all versus Miami. But their pass offense was very good in that game against Miami O. We'll see if they're going to be able to throw the ball here on this Buffalo defense, because the Buffalo defense is 116th in the country as far as passing yards. So that could be a pathway to success here for this Ball State offense that has definitely been better throwing the ball than they've been running the ball. Their own defense is just not very good. That would be a concern here if I'm Ball State. Both against the run and the pass, Ball State's defense has struggled. I like this over as well, but from a side perspective, I like Ball State a little bit here, +5. And I don't like going against Pete Lembo. He was a great hire. This is actually his former team. If you remember, Pete Lembo coached Ball State a long time ago, and that angle, there's something to it, but none of these kids were around, playing college football all those years ago. It'll mean something to Pete Lembo to beat Ball State, the team he used to coach, but like I said, I still think when you look at this matchup, this is the biggest favorite Buffalo's been all year. Defense is still shaky. Ball State's been undervalued from a point spread perspective. 3 straight point spread covers, 2 straight in conference play. Once again, catching points here. Again, a 1-score game with a very good Miami O team last week for Ball State. I think the underdog here is worth a look here with Ball State. What do you think here, C-Mac? Ball State, Buffalo.
Yeah, and last week in that game, Ball State, they just kind of faded late. They couldn't get anything going. Miami, Ohio finally kind of clamped down in the fourth quarter. It was tied 21-21. Just couldn't do anything. They got 2 field goals. That was it. But we got the cover with it. We talked about it. I think you have to be on them here. If they've been playing better, it seems like this might have been a 7 a few weeks ago. But they should have success throwing it. Both teams do. One thing with Buffalo, they're not as good. Only 174 a game. They want to run a little more. Because Ball State, 132 against the pass, 291 yards a game. And then you hit on the other side, 116, 255. So Ball State should have some success throwing it on this Buffalo defense. One thing with Ball State, too, their last 3 games haven't got over this number. But the total is 48 push last week. So they've just still been excellent to the over. I lean that way. This was a few points lower. I think that'd be the move here. Oh man, I mean, we've seen a lot of these games stay under in the MAC. This is not the MAC of years back, with just wild, crazy points. But Ball State, if they're in it, which I think they're going to have to be, they're going to have to score points. They can't sit around. One thing, they've been a shitty team on the road. Last week we got them at home. That's where we wanted to back them. So just these teams in the MAC, if just when you look at them too, just good at home and just dreadful on the road. The numbers just go to shit. Turnovers go to shit. Talk about turnovers. We'll get into it more. Some of these games is just crazy. It's never been something I've lost on teams. It's just, I brought it up last week, I think, Bavana. It's crazy. Crazy.
The way it goes, that's the risk you run, especially in college football, where I think there's even more variance when it comes to turnover margin. That's if you're on the wrong side of that, you're fucked. Yeah, most often. Yeah. Except if you're the Detroit Lions, if you're a Detroit Lions backer. Actually, they didn't cover, but if you had the money line,
they won the game.
Because 5 interceptions with Jared Goff last night, and somehow they still end up coming back and winning that game last night. But usually, like we're talking over 90% of the time, if your team's going to treat the football like a hand grenade, you're not going to have a good shot to get the money backing that team. That is for sure. All right, so that's Tuesday.